what they teach at Battleground Academy.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. This one's going to be a little bit different. Let's just watch the teasers. I won't even explain it. Let's watch the teasers and you'll see what I'm talking about. Here we go. So I was just out walking. It's really hot and humid, and I'm walking, and the Lord says, hey, why don't you do the podcast just like this? It's called Seeing Myself, so why not just strip it down and be yourself? So I'm going to. I'll wipe the sweat off, though. So here's the podcast preview. I'm going to tell you about how I got attacked by a dog. Right there. Yep. And I'm going to tell you about a little boy that we used to call Biting Tom. He used to bite me. Right there. I've never thought about that. That's weird. Anyway, it's all about humility. I'll see you. Okay. So here we go. Sorry. Okay. Here's the other thing that's going to be different about this one, other than just like letting myself just be all out here. Anyway, I'm really not one that struggles with that all that much. I just always feel sorry for the people that are having to look at me. I'm kidding. I'll edit that out. Anyway, here's the other different thing. If you've been watching any of the podcasts, you know that I use what I call mind maps. Let's see if there's one. Okay, so here's the mind map from the last session. And you don't even need to see the details, but that's kind of what they usually look like. But not this one. I feel the Lord just said, I'm going to give you like 5 points and 5 minutes to just riff on 5 points, meaning just vulnerably speak about these 5 points. So, here we go. So I've got a little timer over here, and I'm just going to jump right in. He gave me the 5 points that he wants me to talk about. This is called Seeing Myself, and it is all about humility, but you might feel like you've got to kind of follow the bouncing ball here. So I'm just going to do this. I did no prep. I just did that walk. And while I was out walking, this is how he led me. So here we go. I'm going to hit this little, I'm going to do no more than 5 minutes each, hopefully less. But anyway, here we go. Here's my little 5 minute thing. And it's going to make a sound. Oh, it's not going to make, yeah, well, now it will. Okay. Maybe a little soft sound. Okay, so here I go. The first point is this. I'm out walking, and there's a dog in a front yard. And the dog comes kind of aggressively barking toward me, and then all of a sudden he just stops in the middle of the yard, and I kind of keep watching him. And I'm got a little dog history which I'm going to share with you. Well, I'll just tell you right now. So I do love dogs, but I've been attacked by dogs 3 times. So I had a Doberman attack me when I was riding a bike when I was about 8 years old and bit my calf, my leg. I have a scar from that. So I'm going to let you see all my dog bite scars on this, or I'm going to share all my dog bite scars, and that's kind of prophetic. Anyway, so I'm riding a bike, and he's biting me, but he just stays with the leg as I'm riding the bike. He won't let go, which was very freaky. The other time I got attacked by a dog, I was walking home with a French horn. I played French horn in the 6th grade, and this big, loving Saint Bernard came and just piled up on my back. Now, he was just wanting to play, but I mean, the French horn went scooting down the street, and I went flat out on the road, and it's a freaky thing. And then I'm having a vague memory of another, maybe a chase or something that kind of got settled down or something. But anyway, then I had a little Jack Russell terrier that had some issues. I had a brother and a sister, and they fought like brothers and sisters, which is what the whole podcast is about. But anyway, and long story short, I got in the middle of something that I shouldn't have, and I locked eyes with the brother, and I was actually trying to calm him down, and sort of, and I just ate oatmeal with poppy seeds. So we'll just let that be. Anyway, I'm sorry. Back to the dog fight. I have literally been in a dog fight. So I'm trying to calm the brother down. And I'm kind of whispering in his ear to calm him down. And then I pulled out, away from him, and I looked him in the eye to calm him down, but I did not know that looking a dog in the eye like that can cause a trigger. That means a dog wants to fight. And blah, blah, here he came, and I mean to the floor and blood, and there's a scar here, there's a scar here. I have what I call a dog bite dimple. Look, I'm just showing you all my scars. And so anyway, back to the girl down the street. So this dog is in the middle of the yard and he's not coming any further. And this girl, the owner of the dog, comes out, and I said, wow, that's impressive. And she said, well, we have an invisible fence, an electric fence. And I said, oh, well, it works. And so thank you. Right? And so then the Lord begins to speak to me about this. And here's something I have wanted my whole life, for everyone to have their own invisible fence, if you know what I mean. I want everyone to self-correct. I do not want to have boundaries against anything, and especially not attackers, okay? And this was just such a picture of that, because that's what I've always wanted. I've always wanted everybody to just stop where you are and don't come any further. And I don't want to have to correct you. I don't want to have to draw boundaries. I want you, that's your deal. That's for you to do. And the problem is, in the world, nobody in the world is going to do that. Not nobody, but most people are not going to do that. And that takes a consideration. Okay, it takes great consideration for you to be very self-aware and to correct everything so that you don't step on anybody's toes or cross any boundary. And most people in this world, if not all people in this world, are hurt at some level. And if you're hurt, it's hard to be considerate because you are focusing, you can't help it, but you're focused on your hurt. And that's why this hurting world is not self-aware, and we have to draw boundaries. And all right, so that's that one. So I'm going to reset my little timer here. I did pretty good. I came under 5 minutes, and I'm going to restart this, and I'm going to move to the next subject. We didn't get to hear the sound, but so I don't even know what I'm doing, but here we go. Okay, so here my 5 minutes started. All right, so the next subject is this. When I was little, and part of this is just like, putting myself out here and letting you see my gray hairs. So when my son was about 10 years old, his mom started turning gray. And he wound up on a flight, just coincidentally, with my little sister, his aunt, who at the time was a barber and an amazing hairstylist. And so the 10-year-old, said, my mom's hair is kind of starting to look like this. So what did I do? I put there was more to this story, but I'm just gonna, for effectiveness, I'm gonna cut it down a little bit. But I took big can rollers, rolled my hair, and I took that boy to school with rollers in my hair. Yes, I did. And so we can laugh about that. You're probably laughing about it right now. I probably laughed about it back then. But this is about humility. This podcast is about humility. And if that were today, I would be having a very different conversation with my son. That would be way more considerate, okay? But with my son, I was dealing with my own personal wounds of all of life, and it was very hard for me to be considerate and listen to his needs. And I had a young girl tell me the other day that she felt that the baby boomers, which I'm the last year of the baby boomers, kind of had this pretty harsh behavior modification model on them, and they weren't real good about listening. So what I'm doing right now is I'm presenting to you myself as a mother. And as a mother, I needed a great deal of humility. And I will tell you that I have serious regrets about the way I approached motherhood, as most parents do have regrets. But the Lord, I forgive myself, and I don't hold on to shame, because shame is not a thing of a believer. It's the Bible says that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. There's conviction, okay, and there's healing. And so the Lord came to me one time as I was really dealing with this, because if you're a parent, you know that those regrets can just really beat you up later in life. And he just came to me, and through prayer, I had a vision, and the vision was that he, Jesus, and I were in utter darkness. I mean, total darkness around us. And Jesus was standing in front of me, and he was holding a little oil lamp that had a flame on it. And that flame was the only light source, right? So he's holding this in one hand. He's holding this oil lamp that's lit, and in the other hand he's holding a tablespoon full of an elixir. And now that I think about it, the elixir was the color of the elixir was blood red, which is interesting, and I've never thought about that. And he's about to give me this elixir, and he says to me, "You were so sick. You were so sick." And he says it in this compassionate way. I talked about that, like the way we interpret God's voice. I talked about that on Seeing Ellen. But what he was saying was there was so much healing that I, Jesus, needed to bring to you at that point. And you were just wounded, and you didn't have any healing. And so I guess I would encourage you to open yourself to the Lord giving you those kind of visions that the situation, whatever you did, whatever regrets you have, there's no changing those. You're not gonna change them. But when you receive His forgiveness like that, then you can forgive yourself. And that's well, let me just open this book. I'm gonna read this line real quick because I think this is maybe the place to interject this. And I have a very different relationship with my son now. But okay, so this says, "Nothing is more natural and beautiful and blessed than to be nothing, that God may be all. It is not sin that humbles most, but grace." And that was humbling for God to be so, for Jesus to be so grace-filled to say, "You were so sick. You were so sick." So that's one place that He humbled me and brought me into a different state of being, you know? And so that's that subject. And now 2, 1. Oh, there's a little sound. Okay, so I'm going to reset that. And I'm going to move to the next subject, which is biting Tom. So when I was about 2 years old, two or 3 years old, somewhere in between there, we lived in LA, and we lived in an apartment complex that kind of had a playground in the middle. Okay, so it had a playground. All the apartments, it was high rise, and all the apartments surrounded this kind of courtyard, play yard. And so because it was all kind of surrounded, parents would let the kids just come out in the middle of that playground and play. And so not always watching what was going on, you know, surely checking out the windows or whatever. But anyway, there was a little boy, and his name was Tom. And Tom had a biting issue. And let me not rabbit trail off into the evil of biters. But I think that there's something evil about biting. Anyway, so he would bite me all the time. I mean, to the point that we called him Biting Tom. Or he later, in the family stories, he became known as Biting Tom. But what happened with Biting Tom one day was I was on a tricycle, and I had a snow cone. Don't have any memory. It's crazy the memories that I do have, even from them. I must have been 3, but anyway. I don't know where the snow cone came from, but I had this snow cone. I'm on a tricycle, and here comes Biting Tom, and I realize he's coming. Uh-oh, Biting Tom is coming. And my knee-jerk strategy was, give him the snow cone. And try to get him to like you, you know? Give him the snow cone. So I hand the kid the snow cone. He takes a bite out of the snow cone or a lick off of the snow cone or whatever. And I kid you not, he pulls the snow cone to the side, leans into the tricycle, and latches on to my face. I mean, it's just crazy. And so my granny happened to be there, and she happened to see this happen, or I ran up to her, and that was the end of that. Like they dealt with it. They went and talked to his parents, and that never happened again. So I talk about Biting Tom because in all inner healing and all grace-filled humility, I'll make that make sense in a minute, but in your entire walk and journey with the Lord, and specifically in inner healing, you come to learn that what you're responding to today in your relationships usually has very little to do with what's happening today and way more to do with unhealed wounds from what happened when you were 3 years old. And it can be the stupidest thing. Like, that's not so stupid. That was pretty harsh. But it can be like, somebody in the second grade says something to you that's mean or whatever, and it sticks with you, and you find yourself at 57 and you haven't allow the Lord the time to come in and deal with those things and untie those lies in your head, and you're still responding out of that. So I always say, if your husband didn't bring the milk home and you blow up about it, it's not about milk, right? That doesn't warrant a blow up. So there's something else under there, right? So I bring up Biting Tom to talk about, again, how, and I tie it to the dog fence story, the invisible fence story, to talk about how the Lord has had to make me see that I have to absolutely learn to employ boundaries. And almost every, not almost every, maybe it's a 50-50 thing. Let's just say it is. 50% of my relationship issues are because I have been a boundaryless person, and I've had to learn how to be a person of boundaries. The other 50% is that I had my own stuff, and I was just like anybody else. I was wounded, and I wasn't considerate. I was inconsiderate, and I was not listening to people, and I was not, and I'm still there. I don't have it. I'm letting the Lord come in and do a work in me right now on that very thing. So that's how this ties to humility is through understanding that you need boundaries, and through understanding that other people are not going to self-correct. You really have to become utterly dependent on the Lord in that scenario right there. And I'm gonna go to Colossians 1:29. I might have gone there, but this Colossians 1:29 has just popped out at me. I'm gonna go a little over the time here for this, but I want to throw this in here. So Colossians 1:29, the whole Colossians 1 is amazing, but Colossians 1:29 says, "Whereunto I also labor, striving according to his working, which worketh in me mightily." So let me get a reset here. Let me give a different interpretation of that, and I'll even do a picture of a different NIV or something. But it's basically saying, and so I contend with the energy that the Lord is always so powerfully working in me, okay? And that is utter dependence, to become completely, in every second, going, what's going on here? How do I respond? And that may seem exhausting to you, but it's life-giving. And if you come into receiving that, it's so incredibly life-giving. Where you're exhausted, you're going to have a new energy if you would follow that. If and I don't want to talk about you, I'm talking about me, because I'm narcissistic. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, seriously, and I am narcissistic, so I'm not kidding about that. And that's another thing that I've had to become completely humbled and utterly dependent on God to help me come to my calling and do what he's calling me to do, but at the same time, letting narcissistic behavior drop to his feet, if that makes sense. Just like you got to come in and turn this around for your good and your glory. Okay, now I'm gonna set the timer. Got to move on. Don't let myself rabbit trail too much, and I'm gonna move on to. So that was kind of telling you, presenting myself as a child, okay? And also, in that presenting myself as a child, I have to stop, sorry. I have to give myself the full 5 minutes for the next one. In this, I don't know, there was such forgiveness. There's forgiveness for myself for being stupid and giving him the snow cone. There's forgiveness for my parents. Where were they? They were busy, or they were looking through the window and they just looked away, for 2 seconds or whatever. And there's forgiveness for this little boy. Like he's, and I would have to go way deeper to really explain all that. But if you've got unforgiveness for all those things rattling around, you are so sick. That's what Jesus was saying to you. You were still so sick, so unhealed. Right? Okay. Now, moving on to the next subject. I am going to talk about my marriage. And if any of you know us, I'll just tell you the story really quickly. So my husband and I, Stan, and I grew up together, and we got married 4 years ago. We reconnected, ran into each other 5 years ago. It's a crazy, awesome story of redemption, but that story is for another time. But one thing that I want to bring out in this is, if any of you know us, you know that we're both musical, we're both songwriters and musicians. And through the encouragement of some people around us, and the owner of a place that we used to play specifically, really said, you guys need to do this thing that you're doing together, right? You need to do that. You need to turn what you're doing into a duo, basically. And so I was very reluctant, and I'll tell you why in a minute, or part of why in a minute. But anyway, we became a duo, and Stan came up with the idea that we would call the duo Still. And I thought he was saying steel, like Steel, and I was like, wow, that's kind of like a manly dude thing. I don't know, that's whatever he wants to call it. I don't care. And then he was like, no, it's Stan and Jill put together, and it's Still. I mean, it really is so brilliant and lovely. So we were doing that for a while, and if any of you know that part of us, you know that we're not doing that anymore. And so there are a couple of reasons for that. One, we both came into the marriage with projects that the Lord had us already working on. So I was working on the Common Ground project, and Stan was working on a book and in his own music. And so there was a point in our journey where the Lord said, okay, the Still thing has been a beautiful thing. I've been in it. It's purposeful and whatever, but I want you to time out. I want you to go back to the projects that you came in with. And while you're having a timeout and you're going your separate ways, I want you to myself, okay? And so we did this in the very beginning of the marriage where we said we're going to go to our corners. And we really did, because we feel like the Lord really wanted that. But it was a new level. And if anybody's been married, you know that 2 years in or 3 years in or 4 years in, it gets a little more intense. And so anyway, this is really an awesome thing, because what the Lord is doing is telling us, come back to me, and let me be in captivity to me. That's something I said the other day. And what we mean by captivity is we're being captivated by the love of God again. And when you get captivated by the love of God, you come into humility, because he starts to show you things, and you start to experience that grace, and you start to experience this incredible love for you. And this is a broader conversation, but you can't give love in the ways that we should give love, and we're created to give love until we have received his love. Okay. And so this awesome thing is going on right now with the Lord, but I wanted to present myself. So some of the you're so sick is I have come in, and we knew this was going to happen in the marriage, but we both come in with our hurt and hurtful past stuff, right? And then you put those in a small room together and watch it all explode. That's fun. But part of mine is so in the beginning, I guess these are going to kind of tie together, but in the beginning, 22 years ago, which I told my testimony about 2 podcasts back, and I had this radical encounter with Jesus and his fierce love for my life. And before I had that encounter, I had gone through this thing in the music industry and just in general where people were frustrating me so much. And I was just getting so full of anger that I realized, oh my gosh, I've lost my love. And I love to love people. It's a thing with me. I just love to love people. But I was drained out of love because of all this circumstantial stuff, right? And in that, I took my fist. I was driving home one day, and I pounded my fist on the steering wheel and said, I want my love back. Like, I get to love what's happened here, And that was it. I just said that. And little did I know the Lord was going to rush in with a flood of love, which I've been talking about on social media. And he rushed me with love until he had to, I'm about to run out of time, but I'm going to going to reset because I'm going to go just a little longer. Anyway, he rushed, and I tell people that he grabbed me, pulled me up by the collar, and smacked me on the lips with this. He just showed me his fierce love, and in that, all of a sudden, what I would call a supernatural love started coming out of me. Like, I couldn't help it, to the point that I freaked people out. I'm not kidding. Like, I was a little bit obnoxious with it. And so what happened, it was such a pure thing to me. And I don't want to justify my behavior, but I want to tell you what some of the stuff that I brought to the marriage is. And in that journey of like trying to flood people with this flood of love that was coming to me, I still had so much narcissism and arrogance, and then that became spiritual arrogance. And anytime somebody disagreed with me about my walk with the Lord, here's a good picture. So if you picture a pizza, a round pizza or whatever, in a little bitty sliver, a little triangle sliver, maybe I'll do a picture. I heard somebody one time teach that most of us spend our entire life trying to pull everybody into our little sliver of perception and belief and whatever. And really, we just let go, just let go of all that. Well, I was one of those that had that tension of, everybody's got to come into this with me, It's a blah. And in that, I became really critical and harsh and came across just the opposite of what I should be. And therefore, I need humility. I am so submitting myself to the Lord for humility. And that includes subjects like homosexuality, so seeing Ellen or whatever. Okay, I better move on now. Okay, so the last one, oh my goodness, I hope that I can do this. The last one is, here's my feeling about this, okay? I'm just being honest with you. I'm just like, oh my gosh, Lord, are you really going to let me tell this story? So I'm going to have to talk fast. But in this little prayer journal, I was going through a divorce. So this is myself in divorce. I was going through a divorce, and this was a divorce from my former husband. And he was the only husband. It was the only marriage I was going to have on this side of committing my life and having this radical encounter with Jesus, because to me, I was a new creation. And so I got to start all over again, right? And so you're only going to have one marriage on the backside of that. And that was actually became almost a point of idolatry, okay? And I always want to honor everyone in the story, but I will have to tell one detail here. Through pain and through unhealed pain, just piling up in that 10 years of marriage, my former husband returned to an old what am I trying to say? An old habit that is, it's always just the symptom. It's not really the problem. It's just a symptom, but the habit of infidelity. Okay, and so there was from kind of low-level infidelity to absolutely blatant infidelity going on. And so the Lord called me to go out, and I knew that the marriage was over, and the Lord called me to go out and do this tour of I-40. And I don't like to use the word tour because I just do little house concerts and church services and whatever, so it's not like a tour, But anyway, it really was all the way from Santa Monica and wound up all the way into Raleigh, North Carolina, all in one kind of fell swoop. So on that trip, I knew that the marriage was over. And once I got into North Carolina, the Lord just became very manifest in the middle of my drive, okay? I just knew he was right there with me. And he said to me, I want you to remarry me. And I was so depressed and disappointed and angry and frustrated, but I was mostly just depressed. I was so shut down. You know how depression just makes, just almost close your eyes. And so that's where I was. I mean, like, I wasn't even awake. I was so depressed. And I just kind of had okay, Lord, I hear you, but oh, Lord, you'll have to help me. I just want to go crawl in a hole somewhere. So that began the most amazing journey with the Lord. And what he said is, I need to re-husband you. I need to redraw the picture of what that really means. I need to redraw the picture of what it means for you to be loved, because over the 20 years, or how many ever years it had been since this first radical encounter with Jesus, there had been a lot of stuff that happened in my family, stuff that happened in ministry, stuff that happened in that marriage that just were disappointing and depressing to me. And so the Lord was saying, I want you to come back to me. I will start over. I want you to remarry me. Okay. And so in this thing is full of this journey. I guess I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but it's so amazing. You cannot believe what Jesus did for me in this. You just can't believe it. Anyway, one of the things that he did was he told me to go to this particular restaurant and order food, blah, blah, blah. And the waiter brings out this loaf of rosemary bread. Okay. And the Lord says, I want you to take that with you, the leftovers of that with you, to do communion with. And I want you to look up the symbolism of rosemary. You can Google it yourself, but what I saw was that rosemary symbolizes fidelity. And it was one romantic thing after another romantic thing. And it was a period of dying again, and coming to this. Nothing is more natural or beautiful and blessed than to know that I'm just let myself be nothing. Be humbled to nothing. Not humbled out of humiliation, not humbled out of no self-worth, humbled to the point of knowing that my God is my all. He is, if this didn't prove that to me, he is my all in all. And that his grace, not my sin, not my brokenness, not my hurt, but his grace humbles me. And in that humility, when we come, I'm going to wrap it up here now. When we come to that realization, to the realization that he loves like this, oh my gosh, how he loved me over again. There's a Kim, what's her name? Kim, whatever. I'll put that video up. Watch for a video at the end of this. It's a great video. Just go watch all the way to the end and grab that video and watch it when you're done here. Anyway, when he loves like this, and this is the return to love, it's only out of that place that I know how to love everyone around me, to love the homosexual community, to love women who've had abortions, and that this whole thing that we're all going through, it's in the presence and the proving of how much he loves us and how much grace he has for us, that we come to this beautiful place of humility, knowing that, hey, you're my all in all, and I'm loved by you. And that is why I continue to say that our only hope in all that we're going through as a nation, is to return to love, to return to receiving love from him, and then being love for him, for his glory, I guess I should say. So that's what I had to share with you this week. I love you. I'll see you next time.
I pray you'll find the spirit of truth. You'll open your heart and mind and see that it's guiding